The translator started explaining that Jinwoo accepted his request, but only on one condition. He said he would accept it if he fought with full power. The other hunters didn't understand what was happening, but Ryuji was curious. Since they had a high-ranking healer with them, this fight shouldn't lead to serious injuries. Ryuji liked the idea and asked the healer to take care of the wounded, especially himself, pointing at himself. The other hunters from the Korean Association started guessing that this was the little-known tent hunter. One of them couldn't believe that this young guy would fight Ryuji Goto, the top hunter. Cha Hunter thought nothing bad would happen since Jinwoo had cleared a high-ranked dungeon alone and killed 100 high-level orcs. But suddenly, Hunter Beck told her she was doing well despite being surrounded by so many hunters. She replied that she couldn't be distracted, especially now that they had arrived on the island. She then asked Beck if he knew Jinwoo and if he could stop this fight. But Beck said it made sense for Ryuji to fight Jinwoo himself. He also admitted that he wanted to see the fight and wouldn't interfere because the thought of it excited him. If Jinwoo had become stronger than he was during their last encounter, then this fight would be something to watch. At that moment, I decided to start the fight, but I didn't expect my opponent to act before I did. His hand was already near my face, but I dodged it successfully. I was also very fast, and as soon as I got away from him, he attacked me before I could even finish speaking. Ryuji was sure that I wasn't a magic-type hunter because of my fast movements and silent steps. He started thinking that I wouldn't be able to fool him and decided to force me to reveal all my secrets. I looked at him and realized he wasn't like the other hunters at all. There was a much stronger power inside him. But his strength didn't bother me at all. As I dodged his attacks with a smile, my opponent started getting frustrated. The Japanese hunters watching the fight began to wonder if they should stop it. After all, Ryuji was taking this fight very seriously, and his attacks were intense. The other hunters could barely keep up with his speed, but Jinwoo was handling it well. Not many people could dodge so many strikes from Japan's strongest hunter. Hunter Cha noticed that Jinwoo wasn't holding back at all, even with Ryuji's constant attacks. It was as if he was provoking him on purpose. At the same time, a hunter called Absolute Weapon returned and saw the fight. He realized that something interesting had happened while he was gone. Ryuji kept attacking and started wondering if Jinwoo was just lucky, or if he really was this skilled. He realized that as long as he wasn't using his full power, there was no way to be sure of the battle's outcome. So, he changed his mind and decided to kill me. At that moment, I got a notification from the system. I felt an overwhelming sense of bloodlust nearby. I knew that if I delayed even a little, the system might give me an emergency quest, just like during the battle with the dungeon warden. Ryuji's final attack nearly took out one of my eyes, but he didn't understand how dangerous my power was. He almost grabbed my wrist, but instead, he got angry and thought I was playing with him. I wasn't sure if I had caught him off guard, but if I had grabbed his wrist, the fight would have ended instantly. I knew he didn't want that either. As soon as I got serious, we swung at each other, and the ground beneath us shook. The other hunters didn't wait any longer and decided to stop us. As they got closer, they started holding us back. One of the hunters built a wall of ice. Another hunter declared that this fight had gone far enough. After all, Ryuji would be leading the Japanese hunters in a few days, and they couldn't afford for him to get injured. Since the duel was getting out of control, one of the hunters asked the translator to end the fight. Hunter Beck walked up to me and said maybe he shouldn't have gotten involved. I told him it was fine. Another hunter smiled and said I had not only gone up against Ryuji, but had only gotten a small scratch on my cheek. He said my body was incredibly strong, and that I had the physique of a magic-type hunter, even though they lacked fighters. He then asked if I had joined any hunter groups yet. If not, he suggested I join theirs. But another hunter standing on the balcony shouted that Jinwoo was also a magic-type hunter. I stood there, realizing I had gone a little too far. Now, I understood the strength of all the hunters gathered here. I also noticed something else. None of them had seen my shadow soldiers, despite being high-level hunters. Even Ruiji hadn't sensed them. I started thinking about what the Hunters Association president had asked me. Would I take part in the Jeju Island operation? The president was shocked when he heard my response. Meanwhile, the translator asked Ruiji if he was okay. He felt strange and was looking at the ground, as if something had happened to him after that fight. The next day, at the White Tiger Guild, Hunter Beck sat in his chair, wondering if being awakened twice meant unlimited growth. He also wondered how much Jinwoo would be worth to them. However, he knew it was useless to try recruiting new hunters at the moment. There were still ways to contact them, and now it was time for Plan B. His phone rang, and he looked at the final list of participants for an event happening in 4 days, but he was shocked. Jinwoo's name wasn't on the list, and he couldn't believe his eyes. At the same time, Ruiji was on the phone with Matsumoto, telling him that there was a strong hunter in Korea, but Matsumoto responded that he was probably weaker than Ruiji. Ruiji admitted that he didn't even know the guy's name. Matsumoto asked what his name was, and Ruiji replied, "Hunter Jinwoo." He explained that Jinwoo had reawakened and recently got his new rank. Matsumoto found this odd, saying that no such name was on the list. Ruiji didn't understand what he meant. Then, Matsumoto mentioned that the final list of Korean hunters for the upcoming raid had just been released. 6 hunters would leave in 4 days as part of the Korean team. Ruiji was confused about why the president couldn't form a team without an artificial hunter, but it didn't matter anymore. 16 hunters would be joining this time, so there shouldn't be any problems. Ruiji realized he had worried for no reason and decided to call back when the raid started. Meanwhile, on the island where the hunters would be arriving in 4 days, the Queen of the Ants ordered her people to leave. There was no more food on the island, and the ants had started eating each other. She declared that they needed a stronger army, warriors who could protect their kingdom and make their enemies tremble in fear. Inside an egg, a massive ant responded, saying he would make their enemies fear them. He vowed to become stronger than anyone else. As soon as he hatched, waves of powerful energy erupted from the island, followed by a terrifying presence. A little while later, I took my mother and sister to our apartment, but when we arrived, the place was a mess. I quickly realized that while I was in the demon castle, things had become chaotic. But my mother reassured us that house chores after 4 years were no big deal. We could clean everything together. As we cleaned, she mentioned that the house had gotten really dusty in places that weren't usually visible. I told her that since we had been living here since childhood, it wasn't surprising. But then, she suddenly asked if I had heard anything about my father. I hesitated before answering, saying I hadn't heard anything. I wondered how she would react if I told her that I had also become a hunter like my father. There was a reason my mother hadn't moved out of this apartment, even though I had already made more money than most people could imagine. She was still waiting for my father, believing that one day he would return home. At the same time, a group of men was discussing the ants' terrifying evolution. Every new generation of ants was far superior to the previous one. The ants that appeared in the first and second raids had crawled like normal insects, but now, in just 2 years, they had changed dramatically. Recent footage showed ants that stood upright like humans. Their heads were smaller, making them more agile, and they could use all 4 limbs like arms. A new image revealed an even more terrifying discovery. The ants had now developed large wings and could fly. After the discussion about the terrifying evolution of the ants, the scene shifts back to Korea. Jinwoo, now aware of the growing threat on Jeju Island, begins strategizing for the upcoming raid. The Korean Hunters Association has finalized its team for the mission, but Jinwoo's name is not on the official list. This surprises many, as his strength is undeniable. However, Jinwoo remains silent, waiting for the right moment to act. Meanwhile, in Japan, the higher-ups discuss their own plans regarding the Jeju Island raid. They are confident in their elite team of hunters, led by Ryuji Goto. However, They underestimate the threat lurking beneath the surface. The ants are not just evolving, they are preparing for war. The newly hatched ant, now radiating an overwhelming aura, possesses intelligence far beyond the others. Unlike the mindless drones before, this ant exhibits signs of strategic thinking, making it an even greater danger. Back at home, Jinwoo spends time with his mother and sister, cherishing the peaceful moments before the inevitable battle. His mother, still hopeful about his father's return, remains unaware of how powerful her son has become. Jinwoo, on the other hand, knows that the life of an S-rank hunter is filled with dangers beyond imagination. As the raid day approaches, tensions rise. Hunters from Korea and Japan prepare themselves, but Jinwoo remains on the sidelines, waiting for his opportunity. The world is unaware that the strongest force in this battle is not in their ranks. He is observing from the shadows,